Hex, your source for Warhammer Underworlds and under 30 ideas that you can't fit under a Christmas tree for your local scene this holiday season. I'm your co-host, Davey, and with me I have the co-hosts who grabbed the wheel, struggled it away from us, and are taking everything over. They're out of control. I have Skylar, Josh, and Brian. How are you doing, fellas?
Loving the hostile takeover.
For your context, we are recording on the very last day of November. Here's what we know about the game right now. Loon Court, I think, am I understanding this right? They are night goblins. They're sorry, that's old speak. That's a Gloomspite Gits who think they're valiant knights and
a bit noble. Gittonian knights, as I would say.
Gittonian knights. Oh, all right. We got something
trying.
There. And also the Universal Rivals deck, Fearsome Fortress, has been sneak peeked on Warhammer Community. Those are the things that we know are coming down the bend, but we don't know all that much about them. Enough to be excited. Before we go any farther, what are people feeling about Loon Court? You ambivalent, pumped, not?
Josh gifted me Zarbag's Gits when we started, so that's where I started at, and so it'd be after diverting to Dread Pageant for so long. Right now, I'm kind of feeling a little like might return back, but I got to know more before I commit.
Sure.
If I'm gonna do what I want to do painting wise, I gotta enjoy playing as them.
Yeah, I mean, and if you're gonna bring the heat at Adepticon, you got to really want it.
Personally, Gits have never been my play style or something that I enjoy playing, but I absolutely love watching their shenanigans from across the table. I love their squigs. I love that they're all just cracked out on mushrooms and just having a grand old time. So, love seeing them on the table. Not my flavor, but love to see it.
Sure.
I love everything you just said, except for Snurk. That goblin scares me.
That goblin can die in a lethal hex. I'm gonna say I'm excited to see Fearsome Fortress. We've seen two Rivals decks where they've really leaned into this is what a universal Rivals deck could be. I really want to see if they can keep that trend up. I want to see what number 3 looks like. So that's what I'm pumped for.
Same here.
But everybody's probably wondering, why did you come here today? What are we going to talk about? We are going to talk about building your local scene, all the pieces that go into that, including what we've done, which is have a recurring local league, which may or may not be the thing that matches for you. But we're going to talk about, I think 2023 is almost upon us. We've got a new season out, more accessible season than ever before. This is the best time to really make that big effort at building your local scene and making there be a place for more people to play the game that we all love. Like if you're listening to this, or heck, if you're on this recording, you love this game. And so we're gonna try and help you out and get more people in that Venn diagram that we're all sitting in. But before we get to that, we got some community shout outs. Who's got something for me?
We've got our own tournament. Our first Q1 tournament of 2023 is going to be January 21st here in Madison, Wisconsin at Noble Knight Games. It will be a championship event. So go to the What the Hex or Mortal Realms Discord in order to find out more, and more details. Will be plugging it along, and I don't have the details up in front of me, but you can check it out there and we'll talk about it more.
Yeah, Madtown Throwdown. Come throw some dice with us. Yeah. I wanted to give a shout out about a new blog that popped up. It's got 2 entries at the time of this recording, and at the rate he's going, there might be 4 or 5 by the time you hear this. It's called Sleek's Bowl. Sleek being the so loyal Griffhound in with the Storm of Celestis. Man, I was not going to get there, but I found it right before I ran out of time. These are the scraps at the bottom of Sleek's Bowl. He's a good boy. And this is Mike S., who is a member of our Discord, and he has too many thoughts about the game to contain to just Discord posts. So he started up a blog, and it's one of those really fun blogs that is like kind of looking at the overlooked edges of the game. Like what's I think he's got a post about Storm of Celestis, as you can imagine. Not only that, but like mixed with, and this always throws me off because there's two universal decks that have DD as their, but Deadly Depths. So two corner case things mixed together for one great taste. That and then a kind of a love letter to Jank are the two things that he's posted so far. It's awesome, and you should check it out. And there will be a link in the show notes. And if you can't find it there, then hop on our Discord and you'll find it there too. I think he's running a tournament. Anybody got details on that?
I was going to say, speaking of Mike S. and bad segues, he's going to be having a tournament out in Pasadena, California. Looks like it's going to be in the January 2023 window, so keep your eyes peeled for that. I'm sure we'll plug it in the Mortal Realms Discord when we get more details, but if you're in that area and want to throw down, go ahead and keep your eyes peeled for that.
Yeah, and I know his mission statement on this is to make it as beginner-friendly as possible, so even if you are Underworlds curious, this is going to be a good event for you, so you should check it out.
You would be both terrible at witness protection programs. He states on his website or on his blog that he used to be Mike S, but a secret identity was needed to protect his family. Henceforth, Sleeksbull.
I'm sorry, Mike S, when the Corleones come knocking at your door. I'd say I did my best, but it wasn't very good. So
it's the Wraith Creepers that'll be coming for him.
I'm pretty confident who he is trying to protect his family from is the Chosen Axis Mafia, and I understand.
Yeah. Oh man, nobody wants to get the earth shakes under them, especially in Pasadena.
Oof.
Word.
Earthquake joke. Hey.
Always in season.
Yeah.
Speaking of seasons, with the kickoff of the Gnarlwood season, we have a community shout out that is my nephew Jude. He is new to the game as of the new box and a new listener to the podcast. So I wanted to shout him out as he starts his adventure into this game. I got to play a couple games with him over Thanksgiving, and it's an absolute joy just seeing somebody falling in love with this game.
Yeah, buddy. All right.
This guy was trying to win best uncle.
Oh, there's no competition.
Is that because you're the only uncle?
No.
Negative.
No, it's because my brother and I are fiercely competitive over this.
All right, fair enough. That knocks out community shoutouts. Let's run real quick through what the heck is going on with you and get on to our main topic. I'm going to start it off with Brian. What the heck is going on with you?
I'm what I'm calling warband homeless at the moment. I've been running Dread Pageant since it came out and feel like it's time for a change and looking for my next home. I am struggling to figure out. I'm still struggling to come to grasp with what's good in this meta, aside from Gnarl Spirit and Hexbane, it seems, but I have no interest in playing either of those, despite Gnarl Spirit being chaos. I just don't like Barbarians, so looking forward to Loon Court and tossing around some other ideas I'll be testing out tomorrow.
League night, Sash. All right. Well, Josh, what's going on with you?
I'm still shaking off a little bit of the post-holiday, I don't want to say hangover, because it wasn't that wild and crazy, but the still getting into the rhythm of it since we took a week break. I picked up a paintbrush and I continue to paint Vilmorn until they love me. But
it's a whole lot of painting.
Other than that, not a lot of activity on this side. I'm still racking my brain, seeing what I want to bring tomorrow for League Night as well.
All right, Skylar, what about you, bud?
Well, most recently, just getting in those games with my nephew over Thanksgiving. Always get together with my family and play a ton of board games, eat good food, drink, and enjoy good company. So that's most recent, and it was a great holiday.
Awesome. For myself, it's been basically a 1 week hiatus from the game over the holiday. Had folks in town, and that's good because I needed to recover from my ignominious removal from the uh, single elimination bracket. I made it to the top of the Vassal League, and then lost in the first round. After I thought I had a lot of momentum, and then
womp womp.
took a brutal loss to some Gore Chosen, but it was fun to see Gore Chosen doing well, and I had an awesome opponent. Really enjoyed the game. It was one of those games where like you could both laugh over the the crazy dice rolls and kind of respect the good plays, and that's why you play the game, so I am looking very much forward to playing in person. I've been working the last few Thursdays, and I am going to be back at it.
He's back, boys.
Yep. Duck and run for cover. I also don't know what I suspect. As soon as we're done with this recording, I'm going to try and put together some decks so I am ready for tomorrow. But we'll see. Anyway, let's get on to it. The main topic. You guys ready?
Ready?
Absolutely.
All right. So we are talking about building your local scene. 2023 around the corner. Why don't you build it up? Why don't you make 2023 the best year for Underworlds in your local scene? Maybe it's just you. Maybe it's just you and a couple of friends. We're going to try and give you some tools here today to find a way to make it more than that. You guys have been kind of the catalyst for our local scene really going into overdrive. And so I'm going to throw it to you as far as what are the best tips that we have for somebody who is saying, I love this game. I want more people to play it. I want to play them in person because that's the most fun way to play this. What can we recommend to make that happen for people?
By no means are we saying that what this episode is going to cover is a one size fits all for every community. Different communities differ based on players and location, what have you. We just want to give you guys the tools to come up with something of your own, and we just want to see the game grow.
Absolutely.
Yeah, hopefully you hear something translatable, something applicable to you, something to help build your tool belt out.
Yeah, I love that like tool belt toolbox idea. Like we're gonna give you a bunch of things, and then you take which ones you think would work for you. And if none of them do, hit us up. Come chat with us, and we'll try and find something that is better customized for you. But Skylar, give us some tips. Give us some tips on how to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're sitting at home. You just got into this great game, and you want to see if there's anybody else in your area that has the same interests, wants to play some Underworlds. So I definitely recommend getting on like your local store pages. If you're fortunate enough to have any local game stores or stores that aren't too far away to travel to see if there's any communities that are already playing Underworlds that you could look into joining. That's actually how Brian, Josh, and I found the local community here in Madison. They were hosting a tournament, and Brian and I had recently dove headfirst into this game with the Beast Grave box and pulled Josh in for the ride through his gift of warbands to Brian. Well, so when we started getting into the game, the first thing was seeing who is playing around the area and places you can look. First off, obviously, again, your friendly local game stores. But see if board gaming is happening in other areas. Maybe there's a boys and girls club. Maybe there's some libraries will host board games in an area where you're allowed to be loud in a library. I know it happens. But if you can't find one and you want to build one, hopefully you'll hear some things today that can help you go down that route. So first thing is going to be, establishing a space where you can invite people to play. At first it might be your friends that you're trying to get into the game. So hopefully then, there's some place that you and your friends gather, whether that's your home, your apartment, a mutual space. And as more of you get into it and you want to spread locally and see if there's you can cast that net and get other people to join you. First, talk to any local game store that you could see if you can get on a night that isn't particularly busy from a scheduling standpoint. You don't necessarily want to go in and compete with games that are already taking up an entire evening with a ton of or taking up a ton of space and has a huge player base. Like trying to compete with the Magic the Gathering player base in a friendly local game store on Friday Night Magic
Mm.
night is probably not the best place to start. Um, it might be a nice place to visit and ask anybody if they'd be interested in joining in a polite and respectful way. You're not there to disrupt their game,
Yeah,
but
well, if I was going to jump in, I would say you gotta play it by ear. If you are going to be impinging on their space, like you don't want to be an inconvenience to people, right? But if there is space to spare, playing on one of those nights where there is a lot of traffic, I think there's a lot of crossover with this game and Magic players because there's deck building and all that sort of thing. And so if you're able to, again, like this, you got to match to where you're at, right? Like if on Friday Night Magic there is also another 10 tables available, like that might actually be a plus for you. Like play there. As people get done with their game, they wander over and they say, "Well, what's going on here? It looks like you got cards and miniatures. Tell me more." You know.
yeah, I think that's a great call out. Actually, I think the only risk is ever when you're not doing it respectfully. Like you don't want to show up to a game night like that and expect to pull people out of their game. Be open to educating them about the game that you're playing and be excited about the game that you're playing, but don't um, go into something like that expecting every night you show up to bring somebody into the game,
Mm.
because it is a very slow process. It takes work and dedication, and showing up consistently. Like once you establish when you're going to be somewhere, if you can get rhythm to that, and like for example, our local scene was meeting on Thursdays, and they were consistently meeting every Thursday. That becomes something that people can hear, people can pass on. Like, oh yeah, there's a group meeting for Underworlds every Thursday. We've seen them before. We've seen them they're playing, or the store owner can jump on that, and somebody's purchasing Underworlds from them. Oh hey, we have a consistent group that's out every Thursday for this. So consistency is key, and it takes time.
Let me tell you about it taking time. So Phil and I were into this game since the very start. I actually my first few games were against Eric, a Stone Monk gamer who is a member of the Mortal Realms Network. Most of his work these days is on Dogs of Warcry. He's a little bit on the story phase. But my first several games were him playing Sepulchral Guard and me playing Garrick's Reavers, and it's just like brawling it out. But it became me and Phil to the extent that like there was a league that was going for a little while at there's a store called I'm Bored here. Somebody was trying to run one, and the finals came around. The finals of the league, the top two people had to play, and it was Phil and I. But that was it. It was just the two of us showed up for the final tournament. So we just had a best of three. That was, gosh, what are we on, season 7-ish now?
If
I
I
was like,
remember correctly, that would have been like 2017, I think.
yeah. So a long time ago, Phil and I, did our best to keep a consistent night. Like, hey, like let's try and have an Underworlds night. And for a very long time, it was just the two of us. Sometimes one or two more. But all it takes is being there on the right night to get somebody or get that critical threshold. And so what I would say is Skylar's saying consistency is key, and I would reiterate that like the consistency is key, and don't get demoralized if it's not happening right away for you, because it will take a while. Like and there's going to be that day where you just get lucky.
Yeah, and hopefully I don't rehash too much, but I think just to be if it wasn't obvious. A lot of stores post like their calendars on like events or regular league nights. They let you know that Magic is going to be packed on these days, so don't expect like open space. Um, but if they have space to play, they usually let people know what games are played when. If you don't already have a Underworlds in your scene and you got to make your own, float around those days. If you just have a friend like yourself and Phil that just make an effort to, go Monday, Tuesday, like not each day, each week for a week, but
Yeah,
like test out each week night,
sure.
see how busy each night is, kind of see um, what levels of people are there, and bring a box with you, play a couple games, see, strike up conversations, just interact.
Right.
I guess
Well,
kind of on that note, Davey, I've actually been curious since we've been talking about it. How did you land on Thursdays?
Wow. That is a great question. I That actually goes back to the first place where we really got something regular going. The guy who ran the Warhammer store, Vint, who's actually part of our network now. Um, we kind of talked with him, and he was very enthusiastic about helping us. And we are, gosh, I don't know what the term is. We are overly rich with game stores here in Madison,
Oh
Wisconsin.
yes.
It is,
spoiled.
yeah, way out of proportion. It feels like to the player base here, and so one thing that Phil and I did was that we rotated places. Like, all right, like there's just the two of us, but like let's make a showing at all these different stores and see if we can snag somebody at one of these. And one of the places that we checked out was the Warhammer store, even prior to Vint arriving. But once Vint arrived, all of a sudden we kind of found the store owner that was willing to like give us the support and excitement that was really going to have us take off. And so if you have more than one venue possible, like scout them out. Don't be exclusive to one
Hmm.
until you find someone that can really set that. And then it became a thing of, at the Warhammer store there was a particular night set for 40k, one for set for AOS, and then Vint tried doing a skirmish night, and so it was Warcry and Underworlds on Thursday nights. And that's honestly, unless I'm missing something, I think that's how we ended up on Thursday. It's a great question, and that one that I was barely able to answer.
Well, and for context, the Warhammer store is the smallest of the stores for play space
Mm,
in the Madison area. There's a lot of other stores that I frequented, but I never saw an Underworld scene there. So while I was playing 40k and all that, I had no idea where the Underworld scene was. It wasn't until Skylar got into it and looked for it that we ended up going there. And it should be also said, I think, to some extent, it'll also help if you have a good relationship and the store is a good place, the store is a good inviting environment, as well as the manager who are the employees that work there. I think that had a lot to do with our success. Shout out to Vint. He was a, a member of the fun, even though he was working. He was
yeah,
absolutely joining in, and it was great fun.
yeah,
I was just going to comment the same. I can't. Not all of them stuck, but I can't count the number of times that somebody came in or Vint was talking about somebody that he talked to about Warhammer Underworld. So having a store owner, Warhammer or not, uh, that's excited about the game and willing to talk about the game in their day to day is a huge boon.
mm,
Absolutely, because people will go into the store, ask them like, "I'm looking for this, kind of that," and they might say like, "Does Underworld strike your fancy?" And they're like, "It might be," and then they can naturally flow into, and we have a group.
right. You want somebody who can say, like, if a customer comes in and picks up the the Gnarlwood box set, they can say, hey, you know what, I know people who play this. If you want to play against them, like, here's where you need to go to find out more about that. So like building that relationship with store owners is a
Hmm.
big deal. um and Phil and I, basically shopped around for quite a long time. And had some like good leads. That we have, again, we have a lot of great stores, a lot of great store owners, but it took the one that was really going to go the extra mile to kind of set things up.
Where to next?
Yeah. So Skylar, one of the things that when we when we were playing, it's easy to be, like I love this game. I love playing Championship. Um, but you talked about like setting yourself up where people might ask about it. Like, so you need to be open. You need to be open to new players. You need to be open to just casual bystanders. So if somebody comes by and it's kind of eyeballing the game, you need to be open enough to say like, hey, like to look up and have that conversation with somebody as they're coming by. You also
Yeah.
need to be open for if you do get somebody new, like how do you handle that? You get somebody like, hey, like what is this game? Like, how do you handle somebody who just walks up but seems interested? Like, what recommendations do you have for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing I want to jump into before I dive into that first conversation is approachability. Um, so when you're out representing your joy for this game, like wanting to build this community, um, I recommend if you can, if you have this luxury, bringing somebody with you so that you can have a game going. But make sure that game is interruptible. So if somebody approaches you, you're open to changing that game out for a learning game if the person has the time, availability, and interest to do so. But about approachability, you don't want to come off as not approachable. Like, you don't want to be sitting there on your phone, disinterested. So having somebody there could help. And you want to make sure that, if you have a game going, that you're willing to pull away from it as well. So um, with that, one thing to consider is possibly seeing about having a sign like that says, come talk to us about, or feel free to ask us questions, or hey, we're playing Underworlds, ask us about it. Something.
Mm-hmm.
If the store owner who is willing to let you put up a sign to kind of attract people's attention, definitely do so. Now that can be a tool to get the conversation going, to get somebody who might not be the most comfortable with approaching just strangers at a table to have that very visual invite of, yeah, I can
Right.
go take a look.
You could even just take like print off your own sign at home and put it into like those sleeved binders and prop the binder up. You don't need that much to make a sign. You just basically, Warhammer Underworlds, come talk to us about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
actually
Ask
love
us
that.
about it.
And that's not something that Phil or I did. We'd be playing, and the thing is like we enjoyed the games we're playing, and so you'd sometimes get wrapped up in it. And we're trying to keep that peripheral vision going for somebody coming around. But I know me personally, like if I rolled up and I was like, that's pretty interesting, but I really don't want to bother those guys. They look like they're having a ton of fun. Maybe I'll just try and watch from the sidelines, have something up. I
Right.
really like that a lot.
And if you're walking around a game store, you never know if these guys are meeting up for the first time in a couple months and they just want to be spending time by each other.
Yeah.
But if you have that sign up, then people are gonna be more willing to approach.
We don't have a sign at our league. Why don't we have a sign at our league?
We have a monument. We have a absolute statue.
Skylar vetoed my idea, which was to have a sign that said, ask me about my deck, because apparently that's not PC enough.
I don't know. Alex has that big dice monument that I wish we could cart around, but it's like 15 pounds at least.
Yeah, he welded a dice or an actual like single die
Yep.
that's then cast to like a prop to hold it up on a nice cylindrical platform, and he actually then welded in the symbols for that are present on the dice.
And he actually
the
then
attack
won
dice.
it. So yeah.
He put it up as a trophy at our was it at our league or the tournament or both? Either way.
It's the league. Like he won our league and then he won our last tournament. So Alex is the man to beat in our meta right now. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I remember him making the joke of putting it up as the prize for the league and then taking the league, and I made the joke of, you just don't want to carry it to league week. He hasn't carried it since.
Yeah.
This is true. Alex, what's up with that?
Get at us.
So along with approachability in the moment is advertising yourself in advance if possible. So if you know that you're going to be at a store
Like when you
promoting the
find
game.
yeah, when you find a store and you find a day and time and you know that that's going to be what you're locking it in, that's where you think you have the best opportunity to get more people walking in.
Absolutely. And how to promote that is so if you're at a specific place, whether that's again a library or a store or a place that allows games to be hosted, um, see if they have an event page. See if they have some social media presence that they'd be willing to broadcast. Hey, you're going to be there for Learn to Play and the introduction to this game. See if that can be posted so as far in advance as possible, so that not only do people see it when it's posted, but then as it gets closer it pops up on that social calendar that,
Yeah.
oh yeah, this is a thing I can go do, and even plan on in advance. So that could indeed help you with your attendance. um, and then when you're there and when somebody approaches you, we've already mentioned, be ready to disengage from a game that you're playing. And that's something that we already do on our, so like our scenes already rolling. We're really lucky like that. And so on Thursday nights, when we're all deep into the games that we're all excited to be there playing with each other, if somebody walks up, any one of us on this call and many others, or recording call. What am I, in a Zoom meeting? But
Kind of.
many of us indeed are ready to disengage from the games that we're playing to talk with somebody who's approached us, or scrap the game that we're playing and have a learning game going with that person, or even inviting them in. And this is always an option, inviting them in to watch. So they might not be interested in a demo game, but they might be interested in being walked through what a game looks like. So those are things that you can do when somebody approaches you, to cater to that interest that you're receiving. Something you don't want to do is to overwhelm them. I don't necessarily, this is going to be reading your audience. I don't necessarily think it's a great thing to open with, hey, there's 46 warbands in this game. Some of them are really hard to find. And some of those like show up at tournaments and I don't really like playing against them. So you're going to have to think about those when you're building your championship deck. Oh, what's a championship deck? Well, it's, all of the cards that are available from the last 2 years out of these particular releases. No, like that, even if that's the thing that gets you excited about this game, try not to information dump on them. There is so much information that you could toss at them, but you want to scale that back and just make sure that the information you're displaying is approachable. Rivals is always a good place to start, or even just conversationally, just talk to them about why you like this game. What sets it apart from other games? What's the hook? And I think that's a good place to start. And then when you're actually getting into like an actual learn to play game with them where there's cards in their hands, unless it's a deck that you're handing them that you've pre-tailored, maybe if it's their product or product that you can loan them, Rivals is a really good place to start, especially product that they can purchase.
Mm-hmm.
So starting out somebody with one of the Rivals warbands from the Gnarlwood box is a much better place to start than handing them, as much as I love them, my Skace Wild Hunt deck, because they are going to have more of a difficult time getting their hands on a Beastgrave starter deck or starter box, whereas Gnarlwood might even be in stock at the location they're learning.
Right. You want to give them something if they happen to fall in love with the thing that they're playing, give them the chance to like pick that up right away, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and we didn't lose Josh when we introduced him to the game through Eyes of Nine. So it is possible to retain people despite the failings.
Some people are stubborn enough to see through anything, apparently.
And I don't know if we want to add a whole nother topic of like what kind of hooks or how do you handle this situation or deal with it. What if you got somebody rocking up like, so I play Fire Slayers. How good are they in this game?
That is something we've heard before, though. People coming up and mentioning a particular faction that they really like and asking if they're represented in Underworlds, and how good that faction is. And
Sure.
I feel like being open and honest is probably the best thing that you can do there. You don't want to lead them to believe something is true that isn't. Like if you tell them that, oh, I'm gonna have Jason from Battle Mallet mad at me here, but if you tell them that the Godsworn Hunt is the best warband in the game because they're just so excited about those models, and you're speaking from like a power level, you're lying to them. That's not a good way to introduce them to the game.
Sorry, Jason.
And you can always
The opinions expressed by Skylar are not the opinions of the What the Heck's brand.
they're my opinions.
But they are correct. Yeah.
Well, and you just gotta be able to be a little dynamic and think on your feet. In some cases where somebody wants to play Godsworn Hunt, you can say maybe try Narrow Spirit.
Yeah.
But for Fire Slayers, you can be like, well, are you a dwarf fan or do you just want berserkers? Because there's plenty of corn.
Yeah. And it's also a thing where like early on, I don't know, like the ability cap, like the ceiling on any given warband is not remotely as important as the skill level of the pilot, right?
Right.
And
that's definitely a hook I would emphasize is the skill of the pilot, and that's where you can really, like, I underestimated the Cunning Crew, and then my opponent absolutely thrashed me with them, and I was just like, I had never considered that ability being used in that way. Like,
yeah. So what I'm getting at is like as a new player, like any perceived like pros or cons of a given warband are going to be far outweighed by your skill level at the game. So like within unless you're somebody who unless you're getting a player in who is like, I want to go all in on this game, and I want to like like there are some players who are like, I want to have the most powerful thing I can have, and that's fine. That's a way to play the game. But for most of them, you say like, take the warband, you like the look of the models, and has some basic level of functioning, and eyes, and then like go from there. But I mean, even eyes, like we talk about that. I joke, but like Ben had a blast at our tournament playing Eyes of the Nine.
I was just going to bring that up. So
I have played Eyes of the Nine in a tournament in the last year myself.
Yeah.
I just can't learn.
And with that, you said that play the warband, you think the models look the coolest. The rule of cool is kind of the guiding light of GW.
Right.
It's as a 40k player, it's something I always tell people. The points, the power levels always wax and wane, and what is hot now is not going to be hot later, and it's subject to change. So play what you love, enjoy the lore, the models, because that'll carry you through a lot more.
And there's so many examples of players who have championed a particular warband and found a way to make that warband competitive within whatever environment they're playing in. Their Eyes, we keep bringing up Eyes of the Nine as a joke, but like there are people who have done really well with Eyes of the Nine. There's people like Skylar, if we rock up and you are laying the Wild Hunt down, I'm like, okay, I'm in for it. Like, and it's because Wild Hunt inside and out because you played them so much. Even if they're not like the top of the power curve, I know that like you have refined them to a point, and there's that much availability in the game that you can tell a player like, hey, this isn't a power choice, but you can make them work. You can find a way to like make most warbands do something. You just have to understand that if you pick one of these ones on the lower power curve, you're going to kicked in the teeth a few times early on until you learn them. So.
Absolutely.
And some people may pick a warband just to achieve a one-time objective of Khorne's Chosen.
Yeah, that's happened. I got you, Phil.
But to circle back to the Godsworn Hunt real quick, I'm in my joke, in my levity, I am projecting how I interact with the game, and it's important to remember that it's a game, and the goal should be to have fun and interact with the game in the way that is fun to you, and that might not necessarily be the way that the game is fun for other people.
Mm,
So try not to discourage people. In the example I gave, if if that person really wanted to learn the game because they wanted to play Godsworn Hunt, the first thing that I do shouldn't be to tell them about how bad I think the Godsworn Hunt is.
yeah,
I'm possibly pushing somebody out of the hobby, and I'm doing a disservice to the Underworlds community, to that player who could have potentially joined the game, and to representing my local scene by having that be the first opinions that this individual interacts with. If
right.
you meet somebody who is really into a particular theme or warband, and that's what they want to explore, and that's what gets them into this game, jump on that.
Yeah,
Lean into it.
yeah, yeah. Love it. I think we're talking a lot about adaptability, right? Like we're talking about, uh, this is a game. This is a game where if you're going to play a best of three, you're going to be across the table from somebody for like 90 to 120 minutes. And you're going to be uh, there's a social component, right? Like, and so there's value in quote unquote reading the room or reading the person and like trying to give them the game that they enjoy, uh, get them into the game that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So like being, I don't want to get like too into parenting here, but like emotional intelligence is an important thing for you to develop for yourself to be able to like bring people into the game, like understand what people are hoping to get out of it. And then like give them what they're looking for. If they're looking for, there's Eric is a guy I haven't seen him around a little while, but he's a friend of Cam. Cam is our local ghost player. Any further ghost, that's what he does. Uh, Eric plays a lot of 40k. I started playing him, and this is a player who is like he's like give me your stankiest builds, like give me the hardest builds you can. I want that. I was like, okay, like, and he didn't say those words, but like it was as I played him, I was like, oh, okay, this is a person who is not going to be turned off if I bring the hottest heat I can assemble. He loves that. Like that's where he comes from, and that's what's going to get him going as far as playing this game. And so it's like we've said it before, but like read your opponent and like read your players and figure out what they want and provide that for them.
Right. If somebody just wants to run at each other with Garrick's Reavers versus Garrick's Reavers, then yeah, you might have to play that game a couple times to
Sure.
see kind of like where they want to grow from there.
So to circle back to some of the practical items that you're going to run into as an organizer for your scene, one of the things that you're going to want to do is establish a way that you can promote local communication. So for us, we have a local Discord where we broadcast. Yes, we're coming out on Thursday. We hit that drum every week, letting people know we'll be there on Thursday, and our locals enjoy interacting with each other over there. So that's something that you can provide a community by establishing it and being able to point people. Hey, if you're starting out, we don't have many people there, but that's where we're going to start pointing people to, so we can get we can coordinate better locally, and we can get discussions going locally. As your community grows, there can be a lot of fun, witty back and forth too. We've challenged each other to games, to crazy ideas through our platform, just to taunt each other. And even sometimes when we don't taunt each other, Davey shows up with the Eyes of Nine and schools us after we haven't seen him in a few years.
Yeah.
But essentially promoting conversation on a platform locally for yourself will help organize your area, whether that's a Discord, a Facebook page, whatever. Since you're the organizer, whatever tool you think you're going to be the most present on, it'll be important for you to be available to respond to the messages that come in from people that are interested as you're working on growing your scene, because it is work to develop the local scene, and with it are some of these practical considerations, like how are people going to get in communication with me and with each other,
Yeah.
where are we going to play. We've talked a lot about a local store, which I think is definitely one of the best places, if available to you, to make that happen. But something unique to our situation that I wanted to bring up and was touched on was where we started locally was had a very small space that we could work with. So
Yeah.
their space limitations were there, and that isn't necessarily something you have to worry too much about as you start. So in our case, we enjoyed playing at the Games Workshop, or sorry, the Warhammer store here, until we had so many people showing up weekly that we had reached critical capacity. We could not
Yeah.
sustain growth.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that saving us was that the war cry crowd kind of died off a little bit. Otherwise, we would have run out of space even sooner. You know.
But that isn't the type of thing that you need to be too worried about at the beginning. You don't have to look at a space and think to yourself, "Oh, this isn't going to grow to my vision. Like, I'm not going to be able to house as many weekly players here as I'd like, or as many tournament players here as I would like." That is something that is a good problem that you will hopefully develop down the line.
Right. So like we were already starting to feel cramped when we just had 6 of us. And we knew that if we were going to be running tournaments, we were going to have to host at a different event or a different venue. So we actually had that conversation early about having tournaments at different venues, and the event worked with us on where those would be. Um, so it was a very early on conversation too. So um, at least for us, but just having that open dialogue with the store owner, because for us it was about where we had the space available. The store owner was really helpful to us, and also uh, it was just everything else was right. The space came last.
Mm.
So, Davey, that was something that I wanted to ask you about, was when we were leaving or outgrowing the space at the Warhammer store. And that was a conversation that we were having with Vint at that time. What did that conversation look? Because I think there's a way to gracefully outgrow a space and to do it with respect to the place that helped facilitate your growth, than to just peace out and vanish one day.
So I think a big part of it is having communication early. That what got us there, and I before we even got to the point where we would outgrow it, I was like, man, like, we're so grateful for what you've done for us, and just again, back to being able to read people, like being able to read the new people, being able to read the people that you are working with, and then I think for Vint, if we had just left the store without talking to him, he would have felt pretty terrible. But if because we were like, look, like we can't fit here anymore. We have too many people, and honestly, it's because of you. Like, you've done such a great job of bolstering our community, and then still finding ways to support them, which was include them in the conversations. Like, we continue to as people would come into our circle, we're like, hey, you know what, who's great about talking about these games? It's Vint. Like, we're going to keep pointing people back to you, even as we move along into other spaces. But again, it's all that continuous dialogue. Like, it's sounding really like I don't know, not happy-go-lucky, kumbaya, here, but the communication is really the key to so much of this,
And I think one of the highlights you mentioned was getting that conversation rolling earlier rather than later
Mm,
is helpful. So if you start to notice that um, that good problem is on its way, that oh hey, if we continue to grow, and we fit 2, 3, 4, 5 more people in here. In our case, it was pretty much down to we were pulling tables that were for display only off the walls towards the end, and then helping put the displays back at the end of the day. But before we had gotten to that point, we recognized, we're approaching that. We're getting to the point where we will discourage growth because we won't have space for others.
right.
And so, bringing that up early and recognizing that was a point that we could reach, and talking about where to go from there, and having that open dialogue, I think was really important to be respectful of Vint, and to
Making sure that the community is not fractured by the change.
Right.
yes,
Yeah.
yep, exactly.
100%. Like you want to be able to move to the spot where you can grow, but you don't want
Burn
to
any bridges.
exactly. And that might just be the case of like, hey, we're gonna recognize what you've done for us, and we're gonna keep bringing in our business, as we come back here.
So some great ideas for growing your scene is to host various types of events. That's again how the three of us found the local crew here in Madison. Was they had posted a tournament and advertised it early. That's key.
Well,
Uh,
and tell me where you saw this advertisement at.
Oh, I was searching like Underworlds events in my area. Some degree of that, like in the Madison area,
Yeah.
and I think I added like the keyword Facebook. Right, I was trying to
Yep.
hit Facebook pages, and I found this particular tournament was at Noble Night Games here,
Yep.
and so they indeed had an event advertised on their Facebook page. So if that's available, people can simply run a search against that and find it like we did.
Yep.
So just keeping a tournament stream going locally, even if it's just Phil and Davey showing up
Yep.
day of, making sure that you don't cancel that tournament too. Like realizing day of it's just the two of us, it's like, oh well, we put aside this time, let's stay here. Maybe you luck into somebody walking up, you bring your sign,
Yeah.
and they see the sign like, oh hey, there's an Underworlds thing going on here. What is this? I've heard about this game. So tournaments are a great way to host events that are going to be outside of that weekly night that you host. That's, I think, important because we've actually had a couple of locals. Taylor jumps straight to mind, where we hosted a tournament, and that was on a Sunday, where obviously we meet weekly every Thursday night, and he was there for a different reason and saw us and went, wait, what? They're like, is this Underworlds that you guys are playing? And we're like, yeah. And he's like, I love this game. There's a scene for this locally. I sold all my stuff, but I now know where my Thursday nights are going to be, and now I got to go get my
I got to go buy my stuff back.
Exactly.
Oh man, I was not aware of that story. That's very cool.
Yep.
So what I'm hearing there is not only like the value in running an event, because like if I have this event, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, about like supporting that event. That's a way to like pull people in from further away. But like once you have a regularly established night, it's a good idea. And Skylar, you have done some of this where you have like learn to play days, where you get out. Like we at the point where you're doing this, we already had our like Thursday night is our night, and we're going to be at this place, and we have this, and people will know that it's consistently available. But there are still folks who are not in that circle, like they don't overlap with you. in that way. And so sending like basically exploration teams out to other stores, and you've gone to game stores in towns, in the 30-mile radius of our city, uh, to say like, hey, look, like there's this cool game, and if you are interested, there's a community available for you. And that's like once you're already established, keep that consistency, but don't forget to like occasionally look out beyond where you're at to pull people in. And sometimes it's a matter of you going out to those places, but sometimes it's a matter of starting these events, like running an event. And I think that's a good thing to talk about now.
Yeah, with exploration events or outreach, if you will, is the term I've heard Vint throw around quite a bit. I think one thing I would like to pass along to the listeners is, because your goal there is to hopefully attract other people to the game overall, but very likely bring them to your scene if you can. Make sure that that is something that you're transparent about up front with the store or location that you're trying to host it, especially if it's a store. Let them know, hey, we have this local meetup every week at this other location. I would still, if you'd let me, I'd like to come and still host a learn to play at your store, and let them know about the local scene. There's a chance you're going to run into stores that aren't cool with that. But it's better to be upfront than to burn that bridge by hosting a learn to play event and leaving a bad taste in that store owner's mouth, making them think that you were just there to advertise people
just
away.
Sniping.
Yep, people away from their store. Hopefully, you're met with somebody who has the philosophy of people into games raises all.
Yeah, rising tide raises all ships.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah. So like the more people playing games, the more people in game stores. And that's been the type of people that have welcomed me into their stores for learn to plays, and that has felt great. But it's a conversation you just want to make sure you have going in.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And there will be disappointment, sometimes, whether by just word not getting around, or even just a freak thunderstorm the day of. There will be a disappointment where you show up and you make the effort, nobody shows up. It's kind of like starting over again. So like we got our scene up and running, and then Skylar started doing these outreach events, and it's trying to start a new scene at somewhere else, or just trying to drum up a couple. And it's not necessarily, you're not like sniping, but you're consolidating. It's trying to make a bigger, healthier scene, and then those people still live in that area. They were going to that store there probably because it was closer to home. And so if they know that there's a greater interest and a greater group out in the area, in your metropolitan area, then they can bring that excitement back home, get their brother, a close friend of theirs into it, and then it starts to multiply, because it does kind of seem to do that, where success creates success. And it ultimately just kind of multiplies from there.
Well, I mean, yeah, you used the word multiply several times. Like, this is the thing, is like when it's just two of you, it's just two of you. But as soon as you get two more players, you've increased by 100% your group. And that feels amazing. Like I can say from experience, like going from 2 people to like 4 people that might regularly show up. Like when the 3 of you guys were in there, it was like, oh man, like that plus shortly, right about that time we got Alex and Jazz and Matt at the time. Like all of a sudden we went from 2 to 5 to 8, and I was like, eight is crazy good for where we were, and that just like it feels exponential in the way that it goes from there, and that just feels like the way it works. Like once you get past that barrier.
Part of what makes that feel so good is that you guys had the disappointments before, like there, and every little bit of disappointment here makes everyone that you do win and gain somebody, and somebody, like, every time we see anytime somebody re-shows up, they come back a second time. I'm always making sure, Skylar's definitely sure to shout across the game store, "Hey, good to see ya!" And a lot of people get excited when they're recognized and are viewed as part of a group, and it's
Yeah.
that's something that it feels really great after when you put the work in.
Yeah.
And I want to echo what you said about don't being discouraged by attendance. At these learn to play events, I've had varying degrees of success, from what could be perceived as utter failure, like going out there and nobody showing up, to that freak storm he referenced, scaring away people who had been interested previously. In that particular case, the store owner let me know, hey, there were people that were interested, and I rescheduled. So like, I was there that night. I taught whoever was still there, despite the storm, which was pretty much just the store owner and a regular that like hangs out there after like school. So it was, only a few people, but that particular storm was a win for me. There were two people that I was teaching the game, and the store owner, like, and hearing him particularly excited about the game, that felt amazing. It was like, he's excited about this game that he carries in his store, that he plans to tell people about. He plans to tell people about our local scene. um, and another thing I'd mentioned was, you know don't so a lot of the times your goal with learn to play events is to add people to your community, but be okay with just adding people to the game. Like,
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
if
Never
I-
discount how much they're going to tell other people about it.
Absolutely. Like, so Stoughton is much further from where we play. Much is maybe an exaggeration. Anybody got a read on distance there? It's a good 30-40 minutes from where we
Yeah,
play.
it's a fair drive, yeah.
Yes. So expecting people to visit a store in Stoughton, to drive all the way out to play with us, is on a regular weekly basis, is a considerable ask. But um, if there, if you spark a scene there and galvanize somebody there, do what you can to help lift them up and help build that scene. And maybe you end up with uh, like two scenes, in proximity of each other, satelliting each other, that can come together for events. So just be open to adding people to the game in general, not necessarily just to your specific bubble.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about events. Like, what do events add to this, like, recruitment drive?
I think definitely learn to play events are the place to start. Before you try and get a league off the ground, just make sure people know how to play the game correctly. That way, if everybody's on the same page on how to play the game, then they can go home and make sure to teach their friends and family how to play the game correctly. And the learn to play events, you're already going to be kind of doing it when you and your friends show up at places, but organizing it and being like, hey, you and your friend, or you bring a friend from home with you, or your brother or whatever, just to get that started and get that multiplication and rolling.
Yeah.
Word. Another type of event you could throw, and I wish I could credit this to somebody on one of the discords. If you know who you are and you want to ping me and call me out and let me know, hey, that was an idea I fostered, is a release party. I definitely saw somebody out there who was excited about going out to their local store on release day. As soon as they saw the date the Gnarlwood box was dropping, they organized with their local store to have a release event where it was a build and play. So the focus, I imagine, was to sit down, be present with the boxes, help people assemble the game. Definitely, obviously, assemble your own, but then to anybody that you have to come out, help them assemble, help them shuffle up, and just play. And that's something Josh and I were talking about before the episode, that we do that already in our own way. We'll on release day rush to get our box and then bring it home, get our minis assembled, and pretty quickly we're on the horn with each other trying to figure out who's available that day to sit down and play with. And we could actually structure a release party around that at a local store. I think that's a really clever idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that as a way, because any season release is often accompanied by like extra promotion from Games Workshop or whatever. So
Mhm.
like that's a great time to capitalize on promotion that is being done by somebody who's outside of you, but also spending a lot of money on it. So uh, that's that's a that's a great way to sort of grab somebody else's energy and divert it towards your own efforts in this case. Skylar, we've had a lot of success with our league. That's looked a couple of different ways, but like talk to me about the idea of running a league here and what that can do for building a community.
Sure. So when we found out that there was a community locally that was playing on Thursdays, and we decided to go check it out. One of the things that kept us coming back, outside of the great people there, was a weekly card drip. So this was something that's available in the organized play kits. If you're able to get your hands on one of those, they do work for keeping people excited and engaged and wanting to show up and participate. If you have a friendly local game store that orders through GW, there is a chance that you could strike up a conversation with them on getting an organized play kit in your area that you could then use as a tool. So I bring up the weekly card drip because when we first joined, you were already running recurring leagues, and it was a very casual format. It was actually a format where if you won, so everybody had like a seed or a placement on a ladder, and if you beat somebody above you, you flip places with them. If you defended your position, or essentially like somebody lower on the ladder beat you or challenged you to a game or sat you down to a game, and you won that game, then you would just defend your position and you'd move up one. So it was and that was it. And then it was just run for like 8 weeks, and it was really slingshotty and wild. But the draw for me in particular was number one, getting out to play Underworlds and having because there's so much diversity in the way that people play the game and the war bands, like it's just fun to play the game with as many different players as possible. So showing up to play with the locals was awesome, but getting that extra card just for showing up, that became a drug. Where
and that became even better as GW got better about making their promos like good cards.
Right. When we were doing Beastgrave, because you jump in at Beastgrave, and if you're playing at the championship level, which we were when we got introduced to the group, I chose the route of buying the current season forward. I didn't go backwards into previous seasons. I also wasn't buying every single warband at the time. Like I didn't want to buy Grimwatch, but I think Grimwatch had a lot of good cards, but I only wanted one or two out of there.
Yeah.
But they had Temporary Victory in there, or it was some other warband, but it was Temporary Victory and Restless Prize were the cards I wanted, and both of those were promo
Restless
cards.
Prize. I was just gonna pipe up and be like, whoever put Restless Prize in that promo pack deserves a promotion.
Yeah, because
a promo, so to speak.
That's exactly what I was going for. Glad you picked it up.
Because so like when I was trying to nickel and dime, because the majority of my hobby funds were still going to 40K, it was like I didn't want to buy every single release if I didn't need cards out of it. and getting those promo cards, just the alternate art is cool as it is, but getting those cards was fantastic in terms of like, wow, this is really powerful, and I just get it for free. Like, and there's how many more of these? I'm gonna like Skylar said, it was a
What's my
drug.
next hit? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. And I will never forget how cool it was getting Restless Prize and Temporary Victory, because they were such prominent cards at the time. And so not only to get like a copy that you didn't have to, purchase the box that they came in for, even though I was buying everything anyways, but to like have this like special version of the card in your deck, it was really cool.
Sure. When we talk about the format, we'll talk about some other formats. You did a great job of evolving what our league looked like at the time. We had that, and that was I think that might have been pulled straight out of the Underworlds rule book. I think they might have had like
Yeah, I think you said that they had like this will get you going.
yeah, like here's how you could run a league if that was the thing you wanted to do. And that was a way, because at the time we're like, we want to make it so like nobody has to feel like we're just barely getting more than us here. So let's make a format that makes it like, hey, if you can show up at all, like you have a shot,
Yeah, because I think we're getting into like design of the league, but that format is good for if somebody comes in on week 7, they still have a shot at something.
Right.
Whereas if you do a more like cumulative score throughout the league, then somebody who comes in later is going to struggle to make any ground or
Sure.
wins the next league, and sometimes they just won't even show up.
So I mentioned before that it is work building up your community. So it's got to be worthwhile work for you. It's got to be something that you want to be doing and you're excited to be doing, because it's not something that you want to feel any sort of resentment for deciding to take on. And approaching a league is going to have a hidden amount of work in it. It seems so simple. Let me just set up a league. However, even in the example we gave, the format that we were running originally, like somebody has to track placements. So if they're moving every week, somebody has to have the master list as to where they settled after you guys, or after everybody met together. And as the games are going, you have to hear like, okay, so wait, you won that game first, and then you went and played a game with this person. So I need to mark, that first game because you've moved during that first game, and then that means that this second game that you played, the person that won against you, well, then they now flip with you. So what that is to say is like tracking a league comes with work, and the more structure you put around the league, the more work it's going to be. So the more rules and tracking and like the more fleshed out the format is, very likely the more you will need to track along with it. And somebody has to own that. And if you're the organizer trying to build your local, that's very likely going to be on you, or maybe somebody in your local scene that would be excited to take that work on.
And to that effect, that's a thing that I was really grateful for, and I didn't identify it. I think you did. Like we were trying to grow the local, and it meant that I was trying to run the events and trying to run the leagues, and also like trying to do this podcast and all that sort of thing. And then as it got bigger and bigger, I was like, oh, like it was one thing to run the league when it was me and Phil and maybe 2 or 3 other people. It's an entirely different thing now that it's like 9 or 10 or 11. Like as it gets bigger and bigger, it gets tougher and tougher, and you don't want to like fall down on the job because you could discourage people from coming back out. And so recognizing that like once your community has grown, it's time to delegate. Like there's this concept in incident command or all that sort of thing. And Brian, maybe you know this, but like span of command, like the number of things that you should be in charge of is limited by a certain number. And as once it starts getting past that certain number, you're no longer effective. And that's when it's time to start finding someone else to like, okay, Like, I need someone else to be in charge of this. And I didn't do a good job of that, but Skylar, you did a good job of saying like, hey, I had some ideas. And I was like, oh my God, thank you. Like, I, you know, there's somebody who's excited about this. And that's actually a really good idea. And like, let me hand this off to you. And so Skylar, you picked up the league with some new ideas about how to run it once we were more established.
Yeah, and you could also like come to an agreement with like if it's you and a good buddy, or like if it was you and Phil might have had a conversation where it's like, hey, you run the league tracking while I do the event, and then we
Yep.
switch off or something. You can get creative with it. It's totally
Yep.
free form. All of this is free form.
Yeah. One thing that's important to know when you're approaching a league is know your audience and know what the league is going to be doing for your audience. So if your goal is, to very casually get people in the store and give them a reason to be there, then don't over structure it to be competitive. Like, make it very free form so that people are all right to show up as they can, and try to find incentives for them to return. And I'll kind of talk about what we settled on for our local, and why we went the ways that we did with the system we did. But that league system that we first saw when we started joining the scene worked fine initially. We outgrew it, but because it was more casual than our local scene wanted, where there was just all of this hopscotching, and somebody could come in on that last day who was an experienced player, and they could challenge somebody in like the top 4 slots, and then they would just be in the finals for the following week if they won that particular game they challenged, because of how freeform it was, where anybody could show up on any day, get a game with somebody in a high position, actually, if they were fortunate enough to then beat them, take that position. There's
You're talking about my
Yeah.
plan, Skylar. Yeah.
No, I'll call him out. Cameron is our local guy. Cameron, I got a lot of respect for. He is a very strong 40K player, really good competitive player, and I would say an exemplar of competitive play.
Yeah.
Before I throw him under the bus, I'll give him a pat on the back. But no, he's an absolutely brilliant competitive player, but that takes time. Playing the game and getting those reps in takes time, and so his time is valuable. So he saw the system of the league, and he figured out that it wasn't required to be participating it week by week. You could show up on week 7 or 8 and play 4 games, try and slingshot yourself into the final 4 and win the event. So that's what he did. Like, respect. He saw the matrix and he played it.
Yeah.
And we were continually getting more and more competitive. So Cameron wasn't like the problem we needed to address or anything like that. But it was a consideration that it was like, oh, we don't really like, that somebody could show up on week 7 who is particularly competitive and land themselves in the league when we've been trying to we've been trying to promote weekly attendance.
Well, and my point being is that when we didn't want a person who just showed up who didn't read that to be there week after week, and suddenly somebody who did read the matrix comes in, sweeps the event, and they're like, they didn't put the work in, how come they got that? And like, you'd have to explain the meta game to them. So when we were developing the new thing, we wanted to still encourage Cameron to attend more, while also giving the new player who Cameron would regularly beat a chance at winning the event. So we wanted it to be we're talking about the goals and how we structured the new event, but it's not to say we wanted to dissuade Cameron from attending. No, we wanted him to attend more.
Right.
Yep. And players like him.
Yes.
Yep. Absolutely. So I suppose without further ado, I will give a quick rundown of the league system that we arrived at, and we've had 2 flights with so far. It's so far working for us, and here we go. So we I'm going to give the rundown without going into the whys at this time, and we'll
Hmm.
kind of dive into that a little bit here. So, on a high level, the idea was to get people playing games. So every week you could play 2 games that were counted, and for each counted game you played, you got 3 points. So just playing a game, 3 points, and then if you won that counted game, because you could play more games, right? But those first 2 were really going to be the only 2 that we counted for the league. We're obviously not in the business of discouraging people from playing Underworlds. But if you won either of your 2 counted games, you got an additional point. So if you lost both of your games that week, 6 points. If you won both of your games, 8 points. And obviously 7 if you're in the middle there. And then teaching wins was something that we arrived at really early on. This was really important to us that we wanted to
I
include
love this part.
is you get counted as having played and won a game if you helped one or more new players with a learning game that week, because teaching a new player should be seen as a win.
It's a win for the community.
So after teaching wins, the next thing was challenge the ladder. We wanted to harness some of that energy from the previous system that we were interacting with, where you had these upsets and these underdog moments. We wanted to add some electricity to the bracket. So challenge the ladder is a way for you to challenge somebody above you in current ladder or placements. And then if you were to win that challenge against them, you would score 2 additional points on that win. So a 3-point win or a 6-point game. Winning a challenge would offset 2 losses. And if you were the one that was being challenged, we didn't want to necessarily give you any extra points for winning. It just the 2 extra points specifically went to the challenger, not the defender. If the defender wins that game, it was a design goal early on to make sure that we didn't continue to propel them. We didn't want runaway leaders. So we'll get to what a defender gets a little bit later. So that actually brings us into tiebreakers. There are some other rules in Challenge Ladder, but we'll post a link to this document so that you can read through some of the caveats there. But the next big thing to cover is tiebreakers, and the first one is unique opponents. So how those tiebreakers work is every player has with them a score that is broken into 3 sections. So your first piece of a score is how many league points you have. So that's your playing games, that's your winning games. That's if you did a teaching game, those 4 points. So considered to have played a game and won a game. That's where those will live. But then your second value is that first tiebreaker, unique opponents, and that third value is a defender rating. And the reason for that is I wanted to pull weight off of having a single value and I wanted to have as tight of a bracket as possible throughout an 8-week stretch so that people always felt like they were close. So it's not necessarily about your lead score. Sometimes it's about how you're doing in those tiebreakers, and we'll get into that a little bit. So the unique opponent tiebreaker, just mechanically what it is this is the number of different people you played counted games with over the course of the league. And then the defender rating is the number of times you were targeted by a challenge and won. So this is what you get if you were the one being challenged. So you were already higher up on the ladder and you defended your position. You won that game. So that jumps into that third value slot, which is your second tiebreaker. Outside of that, a few general rules included the fact that people could play their games outside of Thursday nights, and we'll touch on why. Another is that life happens. This was a rule named that we just named it Life Happens. It grants up to 6 points for missed weekly games over the course of the league. So if you ever missed one counted game, you were awarded 3 points, and that could happen twice. So if you just couldn't make it out a week or couldn't do makeup games in between the league day, which for us was on Thursday nights, if you couldn't make it out, that was fine. And if you couldn't then make up those games, also fine. We'll make sure that 2 games over the course of the 8-week league are covered with Life Happens points. And the other piece was newcomer arrivals mid-league. If you had anybody joining into the league because they found your local group and they wanted to jump in, we wanted to make sure that they had a way to start interacting with a league that was already underway. So we would award 7 points for each previous week from when this new person was joining our league.
So that basically simulates you played both games and you went 500. You won one and lost one, right?
Yep, absolutely. Yep. And so that was something that we would do for a newcomer during weeks 1 through 6, during weeks 7 through 8. So the week before the
finals and finals.
Yep, and then the finals. The league was too far along, and a new league awaits you around the corner. We would still encourage that newcomer to come out, and we would definitely still make sure that they had games that they were playing. We just felt the league was too far along.
And honestly, what we found is like players that are entering at that point, they're just happy to be playing games. They're happy to be like showing up and like, whoa, there's a ton of different people I could play against, and there's all these different war bands that I haven't seen before or whatever.
So yeah, absolutely. So that was as quick of a rundown as I felt I could do on what our league system looked like. So now for why some of those decisions were the ways that we went.
All right, Skylar, so what you're telling me is, with this league, I show up to a game night at the store. I can play 2 games a count, but play whatever games you want. And 3 points for playing a game. 3 points if I lose. 4 points if I win.
Word.
So far? And then you get 2 of those games, so I can score anywhere from 6 to 8 in a night.
Your understanding here is solid.
We play this for 8 weeks. Then there's going to be a leaderboard. There's going to be ranks. If you're ranked higher than me and I can challenge you, I get 6 points?
Correct.
Yeah.
Dope. So that's the way to climb, right?
Right. So that win was 6 points instead of 4 points. An extra 2.
Yeah.
So then if everybody's all tied, if we got a tightly packed leaderboard here, because like what you're saying is attendance is weighted heaviest here. So if everybody's been attending, everybody's been playing games, and you don't just have somebody who's consistently winning all the time, which, kudos to them. But if you got a tight leaderboard, the tiebreakers are then how many different people I've played, and then how many times I've defended my rank.
Absolutely. You should have done the quick rundown, man. You're doing great here. Keep it going.
Cool. But what happens if some stuff hits a fan and I can't make it one week?
Saved it.
I can just get a freebie?
Up to 2 counted games in freebies.
Just as I was there in spirit, kind of a thing. I didn't actually win.
We missed you.
Tight.
This was, I'll admit, like you guys came in with this idea of like, hey, like we have this thought about how like this league could look differently, and I had some skepticism, not gonna lie, but once I took a step back and looked at like what are they trying to accomplish with this, like it helped me understand where we're going. And so like you've made all these changes to our original super chaotic format, and what would you say was the core idea behind like what changes you brought to this league? Like what What are you prioritizing by running a league in this way?
Butts and seats.
Absolutely. So we wanted to focus on simply playing weekly games, not only playing Underworlds, but playing with each other, interacting with each other, and including people in the league who couldn't always make it out locally. It was very important. And this is something that we didn't initially have in the first draft, and Josh had a lot of good feedback on. And so this was quite the brainstormed effort. If I were ever to attempt to take ownership of it, I would be doing an absolute discredit to Brian and Josh, who helped. Like, I may have authored this, but they helped design this every step of the way. And something Josh fought for was that we are trying to get people into this game and build our community. We're not necessarily trying to say, if you can't schedule to be there on Thursdays, then you can't come out and play. We would love for you to be at the league, and we would hope that being at the league and playing with the community, if that's something that you could make happen on the night that we landed on, we would hope that that would be its own reward. So to focus on getting games going, actually, one of the fundamental design pieces that fell into place was unique opponents. And that was something that Brian said out of the gate he wanted to see in whatever format we landed on, was that he wanted the different people that you played over the course of the league to matter, because he thought that would be an interesting way to get people interacting. So go ahead, Brian, if there's anything you'd like to add there. I won't do the talking for you, because it was definitely your brainchild.
It just promotes cross-pollination. Just you don't have the two buddies fighting against each other, and like, or you don't have the one person beating up on the same person every time, because sometimes you get somebody like Josh who's a glutton for punishment and is just like, no, I'm gonna beat you,
and he's not.
And basically they just they're gonna try and surmount that challenge, and kudos to them for trying. But then you're gonna wind up, if there's a disparity there, you could wind up with somebody just constantly winning versus the same person, and vice versa. We wanted to just cross-pollinate, and that way everybody gets to play against each other, meet each other, and more social. So
Absolutely.
It had some interesting side effects too, right? Because one of the things that we had that was a pleasant surprise was when you had somebody who had kind of come out of the weeds a little bit, like they hadn't been to a league in a couple weeks or so, everybody was jumping on the opportunity to play that person and get
Yeah.
them a game to make sure that their unique player count got higher. And it never ended up being like, hey, we want to like punch down on somebody because I'm gonna get that win. It was, hey, I haven't played a game with you yet. Let's it's been a while.
Right.
So I think that was a really cool aspect that might not have been intended, but it still happened and was a really cool benefit.
Yeah, and I even found myself where we count 2 games, right? But you can play more games, obviously, and we're not restricting how much you can play Underworlds. But for the scoring purposes, you can help other players who maybe missed the league night to get their games in. Meet them at another store or their house, whatever, and play those matches. You don't get points for your performance in the match, but you do add towards your unique opponent score. So I found myself making the effort to help other people get their games in, and got a little extra for myself.
Yep. Brian came to my house and beat me up in my own house.
And then they played Underworlds.
Was it Clophack versus Fire Slayers?
It might have been that, yeah.
And
yeah.
That was the most celebrated. So, like, throughout the course of the first flight with the system, as one of the designers and one of the people trying, like, the purpose is to prop up the local league, to serve the local community. And so like hearing people excited about different elements gave me such energy, and unique opponents was one that was just constantly celebrated. People loved that they would show up each week and try to find somebody they hadn't played before. And one of the reasons that worked so well is because the scoring weight was so heavily on playing games instead of winning games. It kept the scores really tight from week to week. And the challenge system helped with that because we have a bunch of caveats sewn into the challenge system to try to avoid the people at the top of the pack from being able to take advantage of it, from the fact that they don't have anybody that they can challenge, to if they are challenged and they win that game, they're not getting anything super extra. They're getting that defender rating, which is that third tiebreaker, which actually mattered because the groupings were so tight week to week that most often the deciding factor in whether you were placed third or fourth was because of how many unique opponents you had. And sometimes towards the end of the league, you had people who had the exact same league point score, the exact same unique opponent score, and it came down to that defender rating. You know, how many times were they challenged during the course of the league and were able to hold their own against that challenge. So the tiebreakers ended up working really well, and both of them I think is something that I was proud of with how the community felt energized by them, like how they reacted to them and interacted with them. It felt like a win of the system.
Concur.
Definitely.
Yeah, so overall design philosophies, again, was just simply trying to get us interacting with as many people on a weekly basis that we could within our local, and playing as many games of Underworld as we could. I'm really glad Brian called out that unique opponent piece, where if you've played your 2 counted games, but somebody else hasn't played their 2 counted games, if you go play with them and you haven't played before, like those, sure, it wasn't counting towards your weekly points. Maybe you lost both your games, you win this one against them, it's like, oh, I wish this had been one of the 2 counted games, but at least you'd get pushed up on that unique opponent rating. So you were still getting something out of it. And that it's a hard thing to balance, wanting to have your community coming out and still support the people that can't always make it out. So like Brian, for example, he can only make it out every other week. So on the off weeks, and that's just because of his work schedule. So on the weeks where he has to work and can't make it out to league, he had to go do makeup games. So he had to find people that were willing to do those makeup games. And that is something that was cool about our local, is that a lot of people were willing to do that. But I will say that there is like an inherent disadvantage in this system for those people, because we did focus so hard on community interaction with that unique opponent rating, and people looking for games that aren't making it out might struggle to, or very likely would struggle to get as many unique opponents as somebody coming to the store. And there's going to be concessions when you design any league system. That was one that we were willing to make. We wanted to focus so much on like interacting as a community that if it was a little harder to get that second tiebreaker, or sorry, that first tiebreaker moving in unique opponents for somebody who was at home, we felt that was the concession that was worthwhile.
Yeah.
It doesn't take them out of the race, though, because if they are winning their games against other people in the league, even if it is, 1-2 other people that they can interact with, that's still advancing them in that front runner scorer, right? The league points. So
Brian definitely made it to the Final Four and definitely lost to Illusions Wormspat. So. Too soon.
So I think we can also kind of consider the challenge mechanic to be almost like an additional advanced module that you don't need to run this league with the challenge mechanic, but the challenge of the ladder mechanic we came up with did also take a lot of figuring out how to make it work, how to make it not contribute to a runaway leader, and while also making it a catch up mechanic.
It was the trickiest element to design. It's been through so many revisions, and I'm still not sure I'm 100% happy with it, but it works.
So
that being said, if you have listened to this episode and you are wanting to establish a league that mirrors this league, you can visit themortalrealms.com and we will have a post for you that kind of lays out the rules.
For the whole league outline, we'll have that all, and we'll have the challenge mechanic as its own box.
Yep. Congratulations, Skylar. You have another assignment.
All right.
You've given Davey enough, but I gave him the redacted clip, so
perfect.
He has all the tools he needs.
He's so proud.
I am. I really am. I think that's a pretty good overview on like growing your local community. I'm gonna pass it one more time around the bend, one by one. Do you have anything else that you want to contribute to this topic, Josh?
Yeah, I think the last point that I really want to hit home is cater to your community. We've done a lot of talking about what works for our community, and just from the very core of it, we have a group that meets on Thursdays. If you have a group of people that are willing to play Underworlds frequently but can't meet on any one given day, don't make it one given day. Go into you have your assignments for the week, and here's who you got to play. Get a game in during the week.
When
a
I
lot
first
of
started,
a lot of it is just knowing what your players want to accomplish with a league or any other sort of event or tournament or something like that, and making it work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I first started 40K, the group for some reason met on Wednesday, and then next week would be Thursday, and then the next week would be Wednesday. So like it was an alternating. It made it a challenge to keep track of, but it made it where the most people could show up. So that was the concession that they made, and we were lucky to have Thursdays work for most people. But even me, I can't. Right now, I would prefer that Wednesday, Thursday, or the alternating schedule, so that I could show up every week. But it's fine. I'll suffer.
Good.
But yeah. As far as me, another thing. Our community is also great. Shout out to Jazz. She would also, while we were there for the cards, she would surprise us with baked goods, and it's just like a double bonus. Like, just a great community. Like the different people that you'll get in there will add their own unique flair and spice. So roll with it. Like lean into it.
Yeah.
Whether it's a painting community or a community that's focused on painting, you can work that into your scoring potentially. Like so. Roll with it.
Or if you are particularly interested in the painting aspect of the hobby, and you want to like bring that energy to your community and maybe host painting nights, that's something that's like uniquely really interesting that we don't actually do in our area, but I think is super cool.
Concur.
Yeah, you can also the way you weight your prizes. You know, we still do have at the end of the league the painting competition for the Golden Demon card in the organized play kit. So at the end of the league, no matter if you're in the top half or bottom half of the leaderboard, everybody puts their models out, and the Golden Demon goes to the warband with the highest amount of votes by popular vote. So that's still a factor in there. You could make it where I could imagine. You throw a point on each week if you've made painting progress on your models, like on your warband.
I like that.
So
yeah,
you could do that too.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother conversation. Is like how you choose to incentivize your events. Like we, when we run an event, we're often in the mindset of like let's get as many people who are Underworlds curious as we can get, and for that effect, what we're going to do is rather than have like one really big prize for someone who's at the top, we want to make it so that you feel like, hey, I'm going to join this event I know I'm not going to win because I'm super new. But it's like in this last one we had rivals, universal rivals decks, courtesy of Alex Gonzalez, brought them up for us. But we had like Deadly Depths and we had Illusionary Might. And it was like, you can, I'm new to this. Let me expand what I can do. Let's provide some incentives for the people who I think that they are unlikely to win this event, but like, let's give them something to feel like they might look forward to at the end of it,
And I'm kind of surprised that we overlooked this, but talking about incentives, we also just put our money where our mouth was. Me and Skylar, I think we all contributed to buying essentials packs and just carrying them around and
Sure.
handing them out to new players. If somebody played the game and we felt they had a genuine interest in it, those essential packs, they're evergreen. It's an excellent place where, there's always going to be cards for them to use there.
Yeah.
And doling those out always put a huge smile on people's faces, and we saw a lot of them come back.
I think these days I'd probably be throwing like if I were just starting now, because that was back before Nemesis came out. I think I'd probably give and carry like Nemesis packs. I'm really happy that Essentials was this evergreen product that it was so easy to throw at people that were interested in the game. But
I think if you're starting your collection, it's still perfect. Like if you're getting a brand new person in there, I think it's still just as good.
Yeah. Another thing is don't underestimate the value of a door prize. Whenever you can, for events, if within means, if possible, try to give something out just for showing up. Try to just raffle something where you stick everybody's name in a hat and draw somebody out. So it didn't matter that they were skillful at that event. It was just because they showed up.
You got a chance.
Yep, good sportsmanship, always a great thing to highlight.
Yep.
That's the type of thing that we want to build in the community and prop up. For our next league, as an example, we're planning on doing 8-week league. So every week we're going to raffle off one of the 8 of the what are they? The double-sided tokens. There's
acrylic.
Acrylic stagger and guard tokens that came in the organized play kit this time around. There's exactly 8 in that kit. So we'll raffle one of those off just for people that showed up each day of the league. And then the final 4 are going to get the that go into the finals week. They're going to get the deck boxes, of which there are 4 in the organized play kit, and then a trophy.
I gotta get one of those.
And a nice glass trophy to the winner of the finals. So that's one way that we're divvying out our organized play kit that I think works is going to work really well. In the meantime, we're drip feeding the alternate art cards out to our locals as they show up on Thursdays, because we didn't really want to kick off a league during the holiday season. So be mindful of things like that, like trying to start a league going into Thanksgiving or going into November. Not a great idea.
And like be aware that during the summer people just randomly take holidays or be gone for a month. Davey. And so there's going to be people who wax and wane during the summertime, but usually during the school year, you can rely on people being there because everybody kind of gets into a groove, especially with kids, and whether they're in school, university themselves, or they have kids and they're in that just kind of grinding it out week to week. That's what makes a league. League makes life bearable then.
All right. I think we've gone once around the horn. I'm going to give it one more time. Anybody got any last thoughts before we start to close this thing out?
Get out there and do it.
All right.
Yeah.
Hearing no more, I'm going to say, if you have thoughts on this matter, you should let us know. The best way is to add our Discord, and there is a link in the show notes. Or you can talk to us at WTHcast on Twitter, or whatthehexcast@gmail.com. If you want to see more of what the Mortal Realms network has to offer, you can go to the mortalrealms.com. Our podcasts are all archived right there. You can look through any of them if you want to go through the historical record and present me with contradictions with what I have said in the past. Otherwise, tune in next week or the week after, or that. We normally come out every 2 weeks. We know that the Loon Court is coming out sometime soon. We promise. Whenever they drop, we are going to have stuff on the day of release. You can check that out again at the website previously mentioned, or you can just listen to whatever we drop audio wise. And coming up soon, obviously we'll cover the Loon Court when they release. Obviously we'll cover the
Fearsome Fortress.
Obviously we'll cover the Fearsome Fortress when that releases. But outside of that, we are starting to open it up as far as what we have available. So, but before we close out, we have some of our regular segments. And for once, I'm going to be on the other side of this equation, which terrifies me to no end. Skylar, do you have a flavor text quiz for us before we close out?
I do.
Oh, dear.
All right. So the flavor text here is Addendum 1. First, get your foot in the door.
Oh.
Right. I'm going to say this sounds very...
Is this a universal?
No. Well,
No.
It sounds very Caradron Skylords.
It is. It's even
Overlords.
got them. Oh, goodness. It's something positions, isn't it?
Oh,
Solid positions? No.
Oh, you got it. It is
Oh.
Solid Position.
I was
Brian,
so close.
you dirty dog.
It is a Daring Delver's
sniped it.
Universal.
All right.
I do want to ask for any feedback for a idea I've been having. I've been wanting to do a debate episode on a topic. So a couple ideas. How many pings are healthy for the game? Or what to do with the old war bands? Do we rotate them out? Do we ask GW for errata cards and what to do there? Any ideas, any feedback? Let me know. I want to get something rolling there.
This is a great point. We've been in touch with the late great Chatting Crit podcast, and we are going to co-opt their amazing idea, which is to force one of us into an opinion for and one of us in an opinion against, and we will talk about the sort of subjects that Brian has been talking about. Like,
yeah, you participated in such great debates. I think there was one on are large fighters good for the game?
yeah,
And the other one was the to the end meta. Is it healthy for the game?
Yep, exactly.
It was not.
Spoilers.
Disagree. But that's why you're going to tune in.
Yes.
So Mike Carlin and his cool crew has given us a thumbs up to co-op their very good idea, and we are going to try and adapt that and come at you with some of that. So coming up, we'll cover anything that's coming up new. Also, anything that's rad and deserves debate. That's it. Skylar, this is your show. You got any recommended listening for us?
All right. The recommended listening for today's episode is Something Big by Shawn Mendes, akin to the local that I hope you are able to build.
God, that was so smooth. It's like you just were so natural at that. It's amazing.
It's just buttery.
For what the heck's, I've been Davey.
And I've been a train wreck. I mean, Skylar.
I've been Brian.
And I've been Josh.
I'll jump in. So the first thing that you're going to want to do, stumbling, perfect, starting out strong here.
Yeah, take it again from the top.
I've got some.
Get it out.
Can I
Get it out.
Can I throw in some disclaimers?
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say,
one win. I would be comfortable cutting that little bit there. Okay, editing over. Jumping back in. Davey, you're a wizard.
which I think is good that we've focused on it as much as we have already. Really, that's the key. Like, maybe you suck.
It might be the case that you suck.
Oh.
I'm back. And I'm thinking about how Davey has like a 2-day turnaround on this. And I feel terrible.
No, it's fine.
Just a monster.
No.
Some people suck.
Phenomenal.
Well, Josh, you haven't been talking much, but you gave me the after credits. And
there it is.
Nailed it.
Gosh.
Excellent. It's kind of like I've been here. All right. And then if you're ranked higher than me, I can... Have we gotten into the challenges yet?
Yes.
Oh. Okay. Well, there's more editing. All right.
You guys are monsters.
So, and then...
Here we go. 1, 2. Just like...
What is the countdown? Is
You're
the countdown
killing it.
for somebody that is not me? Because I don't need a countdown.
He thinks this is way more formal.
Oh my god! All right.
Well,
All right,
at least this is just one chunk, right? Okay.
I'm going to recommend the final countdown.
Would you...
I mean, you can recommend something, but it might be the final countdown. So,
Would you lead me back in?
all right.